All right. Here we go. Tuesday, like it said, Saskatchewan Lotteries, Barney Shynkaruk, 3 hours with you. Chris Harris is joining me. He's a co-host today. We got Dave Thomas coming up. Rider news from Rider Camp. Interesting news when it comes to running backs that were taking first-team reps today. David's going to join us on that. Tough news for the Riders. Came down late yesterday. Sean Bain Jr. out for the season. I want to say Coulson broke that on the Sports Cage yesterday with about 15 minutes left on the show. We do have rider tickets to give away for all you contest players out there. We're going to have a couple different ways for you to win rider tickets. The NHL season has started in North America. It is underway right now. Seattle is hosting St. Louis. They're 0-0 in the first period of play. Jessica Campbell from Rocanville. I think I'm going to say Rocanville because I think there's like a Moosomin tie in there, but it's Rocanville. We're going to talk to Benny Walchuk later. He'll clear it up because he was like childhood friends with her. First female coach on the bench for the Seattle Kraken right now. So we have her. We have Eberle. We have Chandler Stevenson. And on the St. Louis side, we got Braden Shen playing ice hockey right now. We'll update you as it goes along. Hour 2, Arash Madani. NFL news. New York Jets are saying bye-bye to Robert Saleh. I think that Aaron Rodgers would have something to do with that, but we'll talk to Arash about all that. The SJHL report for Southie Mainline Chrysler. It is Tuesday. We run down everything SJHL. We find out which game is worth the drive this week. Ben Walchuk is going to be in. Hour 3, Glen Suitor, along with Montreal Canadian fans. Play-by-play man of your Canadians on TSN 690 in Montreal, Victor Findlay, is going to join us. Let's find out what the Habs are all about this year. If you got any questions, you always fire them our way on the Capital Ford Lincoln text line, 306-936-6262. Capital Ford, Saskatchewan's #1 Ford retailer. Harry, back in the saddle here. It's been a couple weeks. We got your internet buzzing. It's the other day, it was like we were on the Hanson Lake Road. Now we got everything polished up. Riders, a big game. Like this week, I know Dave Thomas is going to come in right away, but you got a chance for a home playoff game. Not only does that, with the home field advantage and the hype and the loud and all that, we're talking dollar bills here too. That helps out huge.
Always the bottom line. At the end of the day, if you can put a little extra money in the coffers, that doesn't hurt whatsoever. But yeah, I mean, if you need anything else to play for, then home field's enough. You shouldn't have to have any other reason. You want that home field more than anything else.
It's not show friends, it's show business. It's a business, as they say, and that's why we want the home playoff game. Unfortunate news yesterday with Sean Bain Jr. being ruled out for the rest of the regular season. I think a lot of people thought that was the case when they saw the injury. They saw what happened. Not saying, well, whatever on this, but the Riders have spread the ball around. And Trevor Harris, like I talked about yesterday, when he gets time, he's finding guys. Like it's almost like you and I can go out there and run a 10-yard dig route, and he'll find us. Like the guys, the veteran experience is starting to show.
It feels like it's just another example of what they've done all year, and it's just a next man up kind of mentality at whatever position they've run short in. And I think this is just another example of that. Got guys that have stepped when need be, and this is just going to be another perfect example of that. And they shouldn't really, I mean, obviously you hate to lose them, but you have faith in the guys that are still there that can get the job done.
Crowd. We need the crowd. I know a lot of people were saying the Ottawa home game, which the weather was great out. Not a lot of people, like the announced attendance to what it was. I don't know what Matty Young is going to have. He's a great follow on X as he kind of goes through the ticketing, how many tickets are left. I love following that, and not just riders, but just all the different events he has. It's $100 to take a family to a Saskatchewan Rough Rider football game now. like $100. Like I went to a sandwich establishment with the kids last week, and I was 3/4 of that, and I'm like, there's nothing here. We ate. It took 8 minutes. So $100, get in that atmosphere. It's going to feel, the old adage, it's going to feel like a playoff game. It is.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because we talked about this, I feel like a month ago, where we said I was actually even longer than that. I'd say 6 weeks ago. If fans can't get on board for games like this, what are we waiting for? What are we even doing here?
Yeah.
Like, there's no excuse for this province, that community, not to get on board with this much on the line, with this quality of an opponent, for that crowd in that place not to be rocking. It just, I don't know what you do. If you're the Riders organization and you're still not drawing enough, you've got to start just really scratching your noodle and saying, what do we got to do?
They've tried. They made it affordable. They've made it affordable. And I know, Harvest was buzzing, but the good thing, we got Harvest again. Surprise, surprise, I'm not a farmer. I don't have any land, but I know a lot of guys were out, and girls, they were out early. So a lot of the crop is off. Forecast still looks great on Saturday from what Colson, our weather reporter, is talking about.
The funny thing, though, about Harvest, though, is that it happens every year.
Yeah.
So, like, I get it. It fluctuates. Some years early, some late. But I don't know. I would use that as the excuse as to why the Riders can't draw. It's just like, well, there's the farming community. They're out there on Harvest. Like, there's lots of other people that can step up through those turnstiles.
It'd be... Yeah, it's going to be real interesting. Okay, so we have tickets out there to give away. So we are playing SaskTel Pick the Score. Somebody's already jumped in the queue. I love it. If we could give this person 2 entries, we would. We are doing Pick the Score. What is the score Saturday? Riders and BC Lions. It is for SaskTel. We'll award 2 tickets from everybody in the Wheel of Winning today. And then if you're picked and you're closest to after that, you got a chance to win a $200 SaskTel gift card, courtesy of our friends from SaskTel. We do have some audio today. Is Dave coming by? Dave around? Dave anywhere near? No, not Dave's here. Okay, can we bring him up? Dave was at practice today. I almost ran Dave a hat down. It was the sun, how it's setting now to where Dave sits in the stadium. It was right in his eyes. It was like the Red Menace. Hey, there he is, Dave. Okay, so we're watching practice, and I go, okay, what are we seeing? Where's AJ Ouellette? And you say, he's been taking first-team reps.
Yes, he was. And it was very interesting because AJ Ouellette, this is the first game he's eligible to come off the 6-game injured list once again. So AJ Ouellette was there. Frankie Hickson was there. And then all of a sudden, here comes Raquel Armstead. So there are 3 running backs that are ready to take reps. And usually has been my experience is that the running back that takes the first rep in the team's period is going to be the guy that starts. So, of course, everybody's intent. Who is it going to be? Is it Armstead? Is it Hickson? Is it going to be Ouellette? They hand the ball off to Sir Roderick Thompson Jr. on the first play. So I don't think it'll be him starting, but it is trending that I wouldn't be surprised to see AJ Ouellette start, but it's completely up in the air.
I'm looking at what they released here for the injury report and who else was full today. What other ones jump out at you, Dave, that you were interested or curious to see?
Well, Adam Auclair was shaken up in Edmonton, but he he was able to continue through the game. So that's disappointing that he didn't play with a knee injury, or didn't practice, with a knee injury today. Also not practicing was CJ Rivas once again. Of course, he's just fresh back. Of course, he came back and played last week. So I'm hoping it was more of a maintenance day for CJ Rivas. But again, tough to speculate, but he didn't participate either. Like Corte Moore also left the game in Edmonton with a knee injury. He didn't practice as well. So those are the three that really stand out that didn't practice. I think we should be more looking at the standouts that did practice, right?
Yes.
So we had Jacob Brammer back, Zach Fry back, Peter Godber. 3 offensive linemen are right there. Then you go ahead and you look down the list and you start to see guys that are slowly starting to make their way back, like I mentioned, Raquel Armstead. So those are the guys that really stood out to me.
Mitch Picton.
Yeah, Mitch practiced last week as well. He is eligible to come back off the 6-game injured list. So he also was taking some first-team reps today as well. So, again, this team is starting to get healthy at the right time. And who rambles out after about a quarter of the way through practice? Here comes Jermarcus Hardrick.
No way.
Now, he didn't have a helmet on. He had the hat on backwards, but he was out without crutches, which is a heck of a sign. And he was out there doing some coaching with the offensive line and getting involved and being loud, being leadership, or providing the leadership that he's done. So I was absolutely blown away today. It was like a getting to know you family reunion again right before Thanksgiving at Mosaic Stadium.
They should have held the practice up at Griffith Stadium. It felt like training camp for you back in May. We don't have to do there isn't 20 sponsor reads, though. We can just go into this. When we look at Harry and I were just talking about this. It's so generic, and we've heard it a lot, but this is going to be playoff style atmosphere, Dave.
Yeah, that is exactly it. And I heard what you guys were talking about when it comes to the home field advantage and playing in front of the fans. And this team is looking at it as such, right? I think they've got a real opportunity to make a statement against a BC team. If you go all the way back to July when the team was out in Vancouver, I thought BC made a statement. They said, we're going to move the football and we're going to out-physical you at BC Place Stadium. Since then, I would argue that the Riders have been a more physical team than what the BC Lions have had. The Riders over this last 3-game winning streak have looked tremendously well and are starting to play connected football once again. This is going to be one heck of a matchup, and really it's for all the marbles when it comes to a home playoff game.
Dave, here's the thing that bugs me about the running back situation is it's a very tough move to make. You're bringing a guy in who hasn't played very much this season. Just because you brought him in at the start of the year as your de facto number 1, does that automatically give him that de facto spot now when there's so much on the line? Or are they better off going with somebody who's been in there taking the reps for the last weeks on basis? Like, that's what, if they go out and they lose this game and AJ Ouellette starts, then what do you do? I think that's the concern that I see is just like, he shouldn't just be the de facto number 1, considering the Riders have had success without him, but how do you sit him?
Well, thank goodness you said AJ Ouellette. At first, I was thinking you meant Sir Roderick Thompson, who took that first rep today at practice. Not going to be him. But I am completely on the fence because this is one of those calls that only head coach Corey Mace knows how to make because he has worked with AJ Ouellette in the past. What does he need to do to ramp up to get into game condition? Because the worst thing that can happen, right, is that you dress him and then he can't finish for whatever reason, right? So obviously you want to make sure that he's 100% healthy and ready to go. You've seen Raquel Armstead. I don't know what his health status is going to be come the end of the week, right? But of course, this is an important game, but you do also have a bye week before you finish against Calgary. No, it's not 2 bye weeks back to back, as was pointed out to me earlier today by a fan. No, they have to play Calgary at the end of it. So to me, this is completely on Corey Mace and his gut. And again, we have to trust it because he knows AJ Ouellette and what he needs to be ready to go come the postseason, which is, I think, when we're going to need him most.
That's a really good question, Harry. It's kind of...
Well, I mean, if Ouellette goes out there and lays an egg and they go in the second half with Hickson or Armstead and they're playing from behind, then all the speculation is going to be like, well, why didn't we go with Hickson or Armstead to start with? And so, I don't know, it's almost a damn you do, damn you don't kind of situation. I wouldn't want Corey Mace's position because I mean, running back is an integral position on the field. And if they can't get a running game going and they're playing from behind, it just, I don't know, it just opens himself up to so much speculation and second guessing. It's not an enviable position by any stretch.
The question is, though, how do you get two running backs on the roster that are American, right? That aren't national. That's the big question, right? So I don't think you can. But again, far be it for me to say never, but that's going to be a tough decision. Like I say, I'm with you. I wouldn't want to have to make that decision.
No. That's what Justin Duncan, Wes Cates, in the postgame show, they deal with that question probably. Well, Colson, you're part of it, 3 or 4 times a show, where people just think it's a video game, right? It's like, okay, well, I'm going to sit this guy, I'm going to put this guy in. Well, it's far from that easy. And then you start factoring in special teams. Well, this guy does this on special teams. This guy's utilized here. It's not an enviable position at. No. I don't know what. So the thing. Okay, so here, are we safe to say that AJ Ouellette and Armstead would be cut from the same mold, as far as if you're putting one of those guys in?
I would suggest that AJ Ouellette is a more physical back and that he is a physically punishing back and will run over guys, where I would suggest that the agility that Raquel Armstead has compared to AJ Ouellette makes him a little more versatile in being able to shoot different gaps in a real quick hurry and not necessarily after running over people, but they're both equally physical backs. I would just say that Raquel also has got a little bit more of a dimension when it comes to receiving the football out of the backfield.
So then maybe, do you go, okay, what's the defense we're up against here? Which I'm sure they're coaches, the professional football coaches. Okay, so this is where we can exploit BC. Their linebackers cannot cover this out of the backfield if we send this guy out. Or, you know what, they will shut down, even as physical as AJ is, they will just put guys in the box and they'll shut that down, which then we're going to, do you want to kick yourself later and go, well, damn, only if we would have been able to run that, out of the backfield, that's what they gave us. And that's probably the juggling act right now, more so than any other game this year, because if you do have Armstead available for the game, but Dave, like you said, when we were talking in the production meeting, there's a lot of gamesmanship. There's a lot of the cards, vest, chest. Okay, just like you said with the first run of the game, right? It's there might be some, maybe Armstead is not even ready to go.
Well, and that's just it. We're not going to get a clear idea until Thursday, maybe Friday of this week. But the one thing that I will say, when you mentioned about loading up the box, right? So say that the BC Lions determine that their best defense is by going ahead and putting 4 or 7 guys within that 3 to 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, right? And daring you to run. Isn't that right into the hands of the Saskatchewan Roughriders? Doesn't Mark Mueller start licking his chops? Because since Trevor Harris has been back, he's played 7 games since returning from that 6-game injured list. And in those 7 games, he is number 1 or number 2 in all of the key quarterback statistical categories in the Canadian Football League. So I'm okay. You want to take the running game? Go ahead. Give me man coverage on the backside. I'll show you what I can do. I would be okay with that matchup.
That's exactly the chess match. That's what's beautiful about football. It's like, all right, shut it down. Did you see how he looked off that safety to get just Purifoy to turn his hips a little bit, and then he hit Emelis? Right?
Yeah,
like that's what it's okay. Yeah. And you see it in every level of football. You don't even have to go to the look of the NFL. You can go to high school football. It's probably high school football is where you see it the most, and it's more evident, where it's like, well, that team from whatever school, you can't run on them, and then all of a sudden the playoffs, and you got these coaches that have sat there and studied and looked at it, and then it's like, oh, look at this swing pass, oh, look at this screen, or yeah, like you said, man coverage going deep, like the foot. That's what I absolutely, well, Harry, this, I just love that about football and the game within the game and the little chess match that you can play. And I think, well, Harry, like we were talking about, well, the Riders, you put Harris back there with how he's looked, he'll sling it around.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to the ability to make adjustments on the fly. Who can change and adapt as from minute to minute, quarter to quarter, better?
Yeah. One thing, Dave, when we talked about like special teams too, like I think that it's a lot of times in any football, it goes overlooked, right? There's a lot that goes on to special teams, and the Riders, we're not talking about it really one way or the other. That's a good thing when it comes to football.
Absolutely. The less you talk about special teams, the better. But we actually were talking a little bit with Coach today about Adam Korsak and just the way that he's been able to punt the football and place it, right, and not allow for the big return. And that's been sensational, a huge part of the Rough Riders special teams game, return game. Well, again, that's what everybody's doing to Mario Alford. And like I said last week, the numbers were about 6 to 7 yards off the punting average that each team was going in to try to go ahead and make sure that they hemmed Mario Alford in. And like you say, Brett Lawther, 100th game. Again, the guy has been lights out since the night that he'd like to forget in July against Montreal.
We got I don't really understand the question here, but I'm going to from Keith. Hi,
That's
guys.
Not unusual. Welcome to the show.
Hey.
Did you? He asked. Did you see the stop sign? No. Hi, guys. How about this? Williams or Henderson?
Okay, so that's obviously meaning, is it going to be Deontay Williams that'll come back off suspension, or Amari Henderson?
Amari Henderson, yeah.
That would play at the corner spot. And Amari wasn't on the field today. He was sick. So, again, that's a good question. That's a good problem to have, right? As Amari Henderson has kind of been plugged in, and he had a bit of a slower start, I would submit, to the season just because he was nicked up in training camp, but then he started to find his legs. And let's not forget, he's the guy that punched the ball out and really salted the game away for the Saskatchewan Roughriders late in the fourth quarter in Edmonton on Saturday. So he's been making plays, so he's obviously made a statement and a case for him to play. But then Deontay Williams was playing terrific before he had that little brain lapse with 6 seconds to go against Ottawa and got suspended for a game. So again, it's a good problem to have, but again, it's a decision that's going to have to be made.
Tracy chiming in, always chimes in. If AJ gets the holes that the O-line has been opening the last few games, she'll do okay. But if the O-line doesn't open up the holes, it won't matter. Yes, that's exactly how the game works. Also, I think he's better at helping protect Harris while he's in the pocket. And that goes to Dave, and that's a really good point, Tracy. That goes to where Coach Mace is going to know this better than anyone. Can he maybe come in and be effective at that part, because the Lions pose the problem of this for us?
Well, and that's one of the strengths of the Lions, right? They got linebackers that can go side to side, and their defensive line is a very fast and agile unit. So if you wanted to defeat them or put the odds in your favor, what do? Well, you make sure that you've got extra blocking in the backfield. Now, I thought Frankie Hickson did a terrific job last week, and Frankie isn't the size and stature of AJ Ouellette, but Frankie did a terrific job in the backfield when he was asked to stay in and block. I remember a couple of blitzes offhand that he picked up extremely well that allowed Trevor Harris to get the ball out. And AJ Ouellette, yes, does bring that option, does bring that physicality to the backfield and the protection. So again, yes, it's a good problem to have. You've got guys that can do the job. Now you have to figure out who is the best guy to do the job.
Okay, what's the deal with the dancing?
It's always better to have them and not need them.
Yeah.
True.
I know we got some audio coming up here later in this half-hour block about the dancing. Can you just take the people, paint the picture for the people out there, Dave? Because I've kind of noticed it, but then I was like, I'm reading into it too much. It's like everything I do in my life.
Well, I was unsure of it as well, because usually when the celebration is on, I'm kind of focusing on other things that have happened in the play or listening to Luke, which is probably the better thing to do. But what the riders have been doing is there's this little kind of salsa dance that they've been doing. And it started, and I first noticed it when Kian Schaefer-Baker scored that beautiful touchdown against Ottawa where he was hit by a couple of guys and then proceeded into the end zone. And so he started doing it, and a couple of the other receivers chimed in, and then Trevor Harris came blasting into the end zone, and he kind of did this little thing too. So I was like, oh, okay, is this a thing or what? And then if you look at the very end of the Samuel Emelis touchdown pass in Edmonton last week, when he's alone in the end zone, he takes the towel out of the back of his pants and he's doing the little dance again. So I kind of put it out there to try to figure out what it was all about, and fortunately I found some answers.
Can you any kind of teases for what the people can, like, is there a name for it? Is it modeled after anything, or?
I've dubbed it the Saskatchewan Samba, but okay. I'm not a dance expert, so it may have more salsa connotation. I don't know, but to me, a salsa is a food, not a dance. So you may have the wrong guy here.
The Samba. Yeah, Samba dance. Perform.
Well, you remember when you were watching Dancing with the Stars last season, Barney? You remember that, right? That was your favorite night, wasn't it?
I have it all recorded. I haven't got through it yet. Yeah. The Samba is a ballroom dance of Brazilian origin. So there we go. We got to that little part. Yeah, no. I like it. Remember when Ocho Cinco, when he used to catch and he used to do that like salsa shimmy? If I remember.
And yeah, Victor Cruz.
Yes, Victor Cruz as well. You know, the one thing I wanted to mention, I wanted to ask you yesterday, Dave, and I didn't get it. And because I was watching the TV feed, had you guys on the Alexa as usual, and it was after the interception, and it was Purifoy. He put the mask on. I don't know if you saw that. It was like what's the clown mask or whatever.
Oh,
it was
Pennywise.
Pennywise from It. Yeah, he puts the mask on the sideline, and I was like, I'm scratching my head. Sorry, I'm not like football purist guy, but I'm like, okay, we're gonna start bringing props. Is that where we're going with this?
He's done it a number of years leading up to Halloween. Even when he was a member of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, he brought it. And so he'll come running out of the tunnel with it on. I don't know what it means, but again, maybe it's a luck thing or something, right? Why would you change it if it's working? So he got an interception by wearing the mask out onto the field. So, hey, go for it.
I thought it was weird. I'm like, okay, it's props. Now what's the next? The guy going to bring an animal out? The guy going to bring his dog?
Maybe hide a Sharpie and a goalpost. Like, come on, it's getting way too far here.
Nobody would ever do that.
Yeah, no. Somebody, yeah. Well, someone should do the Technicolor Dreamcoat. There we go. That's it. That's what, like Kramer, right? Walk out with that bad boy right there. Okay, so we're gonna get this. Dave teed it up. We're gonna have this audio here talking about the dance after the break, because we're gonna hear from Coach Mace along with Kian Schaefer-Baker and all that. All right, Dave. Another good one today. You have yourself a good evening. Ice hockey starting professional north of Jessica Campbell coaching right now.
Yeah. With Seattle, that's a pretty big day.
It's 0. Oh, it's 2-0 Seattle. Vince Dunn scored. Used to own a car dealership, I think, up in Prince Albert. And then it doesn't have the second goal scorer.
And isn't Jordan Eberle the new captain? I believe he was named captain.
Colson brought that up today. Jordan Eberle is captain of the Seattle Kraken. And also, let's not forget, Chandler Stevenson is there now. Signed
not a bad hockey player.
Big fat contract, so he's
Tolvanen.
What's that?
Tolvanen's your second goal scorer.
Oh, okay. There we go. Way to be up on it. Tolvanen. If you got him in the pool, you're in luck. The Kenniston Super Draft. We're gonna be talking about that here as we go along in the weeks. Okay, Dave, watch some hockey tonight, and or maybe baseball, whatever you got. Try and find a Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Well, I may come over to your place and get you caught up on Dancing with the Stars. You never know. It's a Tuesday. Let's get crazy.
Dave and Barney do the samba. Oh, yoy. But to Shakira, my hips don't lie. Right on, bud. See, she doesn't know it, but I had a crush on her once. Harry knows this story.
Oh my gosh.
She does not know that, though. She doesn't know it. See, All New SportsCage. If you're having fun watching the stream with us at sportscage.com, or as always, we are on 620 CKRM. We do have Coach Mace, Key and Schaefer Baker audio coming up momentarily here on the All New SportsCage, but we are going to talk about the NCAA CHL hockey route story that's been going just absolutely crazy over the last few weeks, ever since Braxton Whitehead of the Regina Pats came out and said, I got a verbal commitment. ASU Sun Devils. Harry, it's been a while since we've talked about this, you and I, but pretty interesting, right? Like the landscape and the scope of how this can change a lot of junior hockey.
When I was thinking about it today, my mind just went in about 18 different directions on the impact that this could have in so many different leagues, down so many different avenues. And I don't know if all the leagues are ready for the ramifications that and the fallout that could come as a result of this, if this is put into place.
Yeah. I saw a tweet earlier this week, and it was from Darryl Wolski, and I thought, well, we should bring him on because it was just some of the questions he was asking. Let's go out on the Western Pizza guest hotline, all the perfect amount of toppings on a pizza that you need and the Greek food you love, like souvlaki, ribs, and salads. Call your local Western Pizza today. Darryl, it's something that's kind of taken on obviously a life of its own. I figured with a son that's 13, first year Bantam right now, and just so many guys in the demographic that they're playing, or kids are now at college, or kids now in the Western League here or SJHL. I knew it was going to come at some point. I just don't know if I was ready for what Braxton Whitehead came out with and how that went down. As a guy that's very tied in to NCAA and with what you do with your line of work, I guess where are you standing on this, and are you expecting, like I said, the massive landslide to come here at any moment?
Well, I think what I said on Twitter is what I still believe, and I know some people kind of question what I said on Twitter, but I still believe there's some really important factors. Like I said, you can go play 10. I just use Regina Pats as an example. Say you're, and maybe a really bad example is Cole Temple, who's a 2007 from Brandon, playing for the Pats, and maybe Cole Temple all of a sudden doesn't like playing for the Pats, doesn't like the WHL. Well, and I mean, I'm using Cole as an example. I know his family very well. So, if I was to go ask his dad, say, hey, you guys have the money? You guys have the money to go play NCAA? Does he have the grades to play NCAA? Those are important factors that people think it's just about hockey talent and you're in the door. Well, no, it's because here's the thing. Like, say if you go to Boston College, like people don't realize you go to like a big school like a Boston, a Michigan, a Denver. Those are all, and I'm not talking Canadian money. It's American money, $60,000 to $70,000 a year. The Western Hockey League Education Fund isn't going to give some guy $240,000 to go to Boston College. That's just not happening. And so, and the thing is, they'll say, well, if the player's good enough, they'll find money for him. Well, the scholarships are already gobbled up. Each team's allowed 8 teams full ride scholarships. If they have nothing left, well, now a guy's basically coming in like a walk-on, and he's paying 100% rack rate. Like at a hotel, when let's say the rack rate's $320 for a room, you're paying $35,000, $40,000, $50,000 for education. Now that's just one thing. Now the money. Now, are you academically? Are you over a 3.0 GPA? Normally speaking, if you're below a 3.0, unless you're playing basketball or football, and I don't care what anybody says, if you're Bronny James and those guys like that, it doesn't matter what your grades are in those sports. You can have any grades. But in hockey, they don't have the same privilege that those big NCAA sports do. So do you have the grades? Do you have the money? And number 3 is, do you have the talent? Just because you played 10 games for Giant Pats doesn't mean you're good enough to play for University of North Dakota.
Wow, that's a whole other way to look at it, because you said it's 18 schollies that each school has. Is that what you said, Darryl?
In Division I NCAA hockey, they have 18 to divide. So
Yeah.
maybe they get like 10 full rides to the Macklin Celebrinis and to the the Josh Morrisseys and the Connor Hellebucks. Sorry, I'm going to use a couple Winnipeg Jets there. So those guys will get full rides. But then, so out of those, so normally teams are going to carry 25 players. Like they're normally carrying 8 or 9 D. They're normally carrying 3 goalies for sure and 15 defensemen. So now they have roughly 15 players, and it's like slicing up a pizza. By the way, I miss Western Pizza. We don't have it in Manitoba, by the way. This little plug for your sponsor. And so, so you have 15. You have 15 players roughly to divide 8 scholarships over. So some guy's going to get 75%, some guy's going to get 50%, some guy's going to get 10. I've had guys that went to Minnesota Duluth in their first year. They've got 10% scholarship, and then the following year, a couple of guys turn pro. It frees up more money. It frees up more scholarship money. These teams, they'll spend all their 18 full scholarships. It's not advantageous for them to kind of bank it up or save it for the future. So, but going back to it, will this say, this guy going to Arizona State, how much is he paying to go there? And, not everybody can write these checks for $30, $40, $50, $60, $70,000 US. Not everybody can write that check. It's not like going to play for U of R or U of M and U Sports. That's a whole new subject as well there. So you go to U of M, U of R, maybe it's 15 grand Canadian. Big deal. Lots of good local guys like Mark Schneider, Sanford King. A lot of those guys that played in Western Hockey League went to U of R, and they've got great careers after the fact of being at U of R. I think that's the beauty of U Sports and those games. But now U Sports, they're going to get kicked in the where, because now if a guy who's being, say, recruited as a 20-year-old, say he's a 20-year-old playing for the Brown Wheat Kings, let's say Scott Glennie for the fun of it, he's being recruited, he's going to go, do I go to North Dakota or do I go to University of Manitoba? Well, University of Manitoba, you suck. You've had like 3 wins in 2 years. I'm going to go to where it's going to be fun. And that's, as a player and as an advisor, that's what I wanted to say for these guys. If they have no chance of playing pro hockey, you want to go somewhere where at least you're going to have some fun. You're going to have fun at North Dakota. You're going to have fun at Arizona State. You're having no fun at University of Manitoba. That's just the fact. Sorry, that's just the facts. You know what I mean?
Hey, I love it.
It's no different than saying if you have a choice as a free agent in the NHL to play in Winnipeg or South Florida, South Florida is a little bit more attractive.
Plus tax-wise too, right? So all of a sudden the tax is coming to it too. And you know what? Honestly, I think Miami sucks, but that's just me. I can't handle humidity in Miami, but I get it. Like if you're going to play in a place, you want to play in Vegas, you want to play in Miami, or do you want to play in Winnipeg and live in Transcona? Yeah, probably not that sexy.
So, Darryl, with anything that's this big, that has this far-reaching implications across so many different leagues and businesses, who do you see coming out as the winner in this and the loser? Because there's always winners and losers. So who has the most to gain and who has the most to lose?
Well, the biggest loser is going to be U Sports, sadly. I feel for guys like Stan Marples at University of Alberta, Bert Gilling at Mount Royal, Mark French at University of Calgary, all those guys that run really good U Sports programs. Notice I didn't talk about U of R or U of M. U of S has a great program. Like all those have great programs, and they're out there recruiting those top end 20-year-olds, not just from the Western Hockey League, from the Q and from the O as well. Those guys, to me, are potentially the biggest losers in all this. Like, I don't see how people can say like the BCHL is going to suffer or Tier 2 hockey in Western Canada is going to suffer. I don't think that they will suffer as much as people would make it out to be. And once again, like this, like I said on Twitter, I don't know what the panic is about, because first of all, we don't even know if this is going to get approved. I know Alan Walsh put it on Twitter and people think he's the gospel. Sorry, Alan, you're not the gospel. You might think you are, but I mean, you're not the gospel for college hockey. A guy that doesn't even know where he doesn't even know where University of North Dakota is probably. So, I mean, this is what I'm saying. Like, I live, eat, and sleep college hockey all the time. I was in Fargo on the weekend at a Fargo Forest tournament. I saw 10 coaches from all kinds of different schools, and they all still shaking their head. They don't know what's going to happen this week. Like, they can't tell me which way it's leaning, like which way are things going to go. But I still do know if it does get approved, without a doubt, U Sports is the one that hurts the most.
Okay, we got about this last one. We got about a minute left here, Darryl. This is awesome and fascinating. We're gonna have to have you back. Do you see a time maybe in the next I don't know, 10 years, 5-10 years, where we start seeing some of these CIS and U Sport teams just becoming a part of the NCAA and playing in the NCAA when it comes to hockey?
No chance. I don't see that at all. I mean, there's rumors that exist, like, say, Steinbach Pistons and the MJHL are going to join the USHL. Maybe that could happen. I still don't, like, they have a new rink happening in Steinbach. Maybe it happens. Like, kind of see with the AJHL and those teams left for the BCHL. Maybe you see that, but I just can't see let's look at the two powerhouses, University of New Brunswick, UQTR, and U of A, those three powerhouses. Maybe throw U of S in there. Will those teams leave? Like, I mean, how does it, what conference do they go into? They go into, I don't even know what conference those teams are going to, and how to work financially. They only have 2,000 seats in Alberta. So how are they going to afford to fly these guys to Alaska, fly them all over the place where they're going to, whatever conference going to be in? I can't see U Sports teams leaving for the NCAA.
Okay, let's watch how this shakes out this week, Darryl. This was fascinating. Again, I picked it up on your Twitter, and I'm very curious to see where it goes. So you can follow Darryl at 2112 Hockey on Twitter. Fascinating stuff. Darryl, let's catch up again in maybe a week or so, maybe a couple weeks, see where this goes.
All right. Go Riders. Okay.
Big Western Pizza guy and Big Rider guy. It's awesome. Darryl Wolski, good follow on Twitter. Yeah, Harry, we got about a minute here before a break. It's wild. And he makes sense to where the Huskies, the Cougars, the U Sport teams, it's like, it's tough sledding.
But I mean, even I thought of it when you messaged me today too. Like, did that mean dub kids start going at 16, 17 and switching to NCAA, do 2 years here, like grow a little bit? Like, it's just, there's so far reaching implications. It is.
Yeah. I don't think anyone really knows, but if you the way I see it, it's like the Western League, the CHL becomes a real 16, 17, maybe the odd 18-year-old kid. And then after that, it's NCAA. But then to Darryl's point, it's not as easy to just say, hey, I got a full ride. I'm going to play hockey in Denver. It's like, well, Chikai, no, we're going to give you a partial. And mom and dad need to come up with 60, 30 grand Americano, which is, now you're adding another 30% on that, and it's like, it's a lot of dough.
We also throw in Div 2 and Div 3 schools. Like,
a lot. A lot to unpack there. That's an hour in the books right now. When we come back, Arash Madani, some news in the NFL. You're going to want to hear about what Rash has to say about that, plus the SJHL report. It's the All New SportsCage, streaming at sportscage.com and on 620 CKRM. Hour 2 of the program. A lot to get to coming up. We have the SJHL report with our friend Benny Walchuk. There are 3 games in the SJ this evening. Weyburn, Melville, LA in Nipawin, also known as L'Orange, and Notre Dame's in the Battlefords. 2-1. Seattle Kraken up on the St. Louis Blues as we speak right now. Pick the score. Everybody today going heavy Riders. Heavy. Even the Manitoba people are chiming in, Harry, and saying heavy Riders. If you got a quick score for this one against BC, what would you go with?
I'm going to say 24-21 Saskatchewan.
24, so that's 45 points. What is the over-under? I saw it yesterday, and I know we got a
45 and a half.
We got a Rash standing by, so we'll get into this. No, it's 50 again. So you're going heavy under. What happened last week, Colson? Sharky's in on Thursday. Sharky hit the nail right on the head.
No, Sharky's guess was 23-27, and the score was 28-24, which is still pretty darn good.
He took the win. He took the win regardless, being that close. So we'll talk some CFL, and let's get ready to talk some NFL with our guy down east.
The All New Sports Cage and Coast to Coast with Arash Madani is brought to you by Smart Investing Solutions. Be smart with your money. Call Brian Golly at Smart Investing Solutions, 546-2533.
Arash Madani. Okay, let's go first off. We wake up, the New York Jets fire their head coach. I'm not surprised, but the owner, the owner,
2-3.
the owner
5
makes
weeks in.
the owner makes the call on this. No, you know what? Aaron Rodgers' body language just screams doucher. Like he seems like an absolute. He seems like an absolute prick out there. And I would hate to be his head coach.
Barney, it's everybody else's fault but
Exactly.
Aaron's. Just ask him.
Exactly.
The eye rolling, the arms up in the air. It's funny he didn't do that when he threw the pick six. It's funny he didn't do that when on the last play of the game he threw an interception. Like, here's my question. The Jets come into that game 2-2. If Aaron throws 2 picks, not 3. If the Jets, because of that, win the game, is Robert Saleh employed today? The owner came out today and said he had a talk with Aaron Rodgers last night, but they didn't discuss Robert Saleh in that conversation. Really?
Why lie? Why do we have to lie? Like, and I think it's, I guess businesses do it everywhere in the corporate world and all that. And it's like, can you just be upfront? Just tell me the way it is. Like, what are we lying about here? Okay, so, and I know like 3 diehard Jet fans that I haven't had a chance to reach out yet. But does this really change the Jets season?
No, it doesn't. Because they have one of the worst offenses in football, which Rodgers' buddy Nathaniel Hackett is coordinating and play calling. They have one of the top defenses in the league, which, oh, by the way, Robert Saleh is a defensive guy. But this is what makes this whole thing intriguing, fellas. Like, you think about Jets coaches of the past who've been fired, and like terrible seasons. You go back to that idiot Adam Gase. Like, Woody Johnson didn't fire him until the end of the year when they were 2-14. When Todd Bowles was running that place, they were 4-12. End of the year, he gets gunned. Rex was 4-12 his last year. Herm Edwards was 2-14. Like, Woody Johnson has shown that he's always willing to let this thing play out. And at 2-3, we're making this decision when, oh, by the way, Woody Johnson won't pay Hassan Reddick, even though they traded draft capital to go get him. It's really like it just doesn't smell right. There has to be so much more here than meets the eye.
Does this make it easier, more probable that they get Devontae Adams or less now?
It's a good question. I don't know. Are they willing? What are they willing to give up?
Robert Saleh.
I'll give you Robert Saleh. By the way, how relieved is Robert Saleh? For the next 18 months, he's getting head coach money from the New York Jets, and he doesn't have to deal with this sideshow and gong show.
Watch his hair grow back. He's going to look better. His skin's going to look better. Doesn't have to deal with Aaron Rodgers.
Doesn't have to deal with Aaron Rodgers. What's the price for Devontae Adams? It's at least a 2, probably more. Are the Jets willing to part ways with that? If you're going to fire a coach at 2-3, you're saying we have to win this year. It's win or bust. So if that's the case, who cares about a second-round pick?
No, definitely. Whatever's in the cupboard. Go ahead, Harry. Sorry.
Is there anybody on the face of the earth today, speaking of the air smelling better, food tasting better, than Sam Darnold? Does he not just wake up this morning and hit that floor and be like, today is going to be another great day?
Well, I mean, look, it's the first day of his bye week, and look what happened. The team that, he failed them and they failed him, and ever since, it's been a debacle, right? It was Mike White and then Zach Wilson and now Aaron Rodgers. And meanwhile, Sam just continues to kind of plug away at it. Only made one real mistake against the Jets on Sunday. And he's in a really good spot. And if he can continue this, fellas, this is where this gets really interesting. Sam Darnold's only 27. When he was drafted in that 2018 draft, he was the youngest player in the league. If Sam Darnold continues down this road for another, I don't know, even 8 more games, 8 of the remaining 12, and who knows what happens in the playoffs, what's the contract that a 27-year-old free agent named Sam Darnold gets this offseason? There have to be 10 suitors at least lining up saying, if you're Tennessee, maybe if you're Seattle, perhaps if you're the Raiders. I mean, we could just go on and on through it where there could be a good fit. And he's out of that petri dish that is the Meadowlands.
10 might be conservative.
Yeah. I mean, look, Jacoby Brissett's gotten how many jobs with how many teams over how many years, and he loses his today to Drake May because basically the Patriots have now realized, okay, we really are as bad as everybody said we were. We're not going anywhere. We may as well play the kid. We draft Drake May high. Let's go with him. Everybody else is, Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix. Everybody else is playing their rookie quarterback. Let's see what we have here. Let's see what we can work with here. So everyone's trying to see what we have, because if not, maybe we go find a Sam Darnold and see if that can work out.
You know what I just thought of, and I had to look it up on the interweb. Where is Jimmy Garoppolo?
He is the backup with the Rams, I think, but sitting out the first few games for a drug suspension. Is that the?
Yeah. He's with the Rams. I totally had no idea. Remember when he was the shiny toy and the sought after free agent?
And because all the football people in scouting and development and player evaluation are so smart, a guy drafted with the last pick overall in the 7th round, Mr. Irrelevant, beat out Jimmy Garoppolo for the job. Don't forget that part.
Shank, I was thinking before you said that, I don't want to make it to 2021, but we can't get Colin Kaepernick a PTO?
Oh.
Right.
What when people go to the Colin Kaepernick thing, I want to, if I'm on a second story, I want to jump out of that window. Like right now, that guy was, from what I saw, I don't think he was that good. He had
led San Francisco to a Super Bowl now.
Yeah, well, Nick Foles won a Super Bowl.
Sure.
That doesn't mean anything. I think
it means a lot. I think it means plenty.
But he had that, I'm trying to equate it to who, very Jimmy Garoppolo-ish, very, I don't know, maybe we'll say Sam Darnold 2024-ish. But he just, and then after that, he wasn't that good. And then all of a sudden, it's he's out of the game for 2 years, 3 years. And it's bring back Kaepernick. And it's imagine the rust on a guy that wasn't even that good. Hey, I wish someone would have tried it. I wish someone would have tried it.
I think football is now past Colin Kaepernick by. But I will say this. Every time I watch Will Levis make one of his moronic decisions, every time Aiden Hutchinson drops back to pass, a quarterback loses its wings, somewhere Johnny Unitas somewhere in the ether is just, yes, he has the barkeep up there for another one, you know?
Why?
Like, have you watched the Miami Dolphins lately?
Oh, yeah. I lost money on the Miami Dolphins recently.
Right.
I was
Did you
forced
bet
to
on them?
watch them.
Yeah.
Why is
Arash, let's change. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, before we switch from the NFL, Drake May in New England. Hey, I'm a Patriots fan. And if you can see my face right now, this is I don't really care Barney face. They're starting Drake May. Why is that the good move here? I don't know, nor do I really care.
Yeah, you have to. You have to at this point because you want to see what you have and throw them in. Like, their season's over, right? Like, they probably have, along with Carolina, the worst roster in football.
But that's why why do you put him in there and expose him to this flaming dumpster fire?
Because there's only one way to learn and develop, and that's by doing. Like, there's only so much you can do in practice, especially if you're the number 2. Okay? Like, let's remember, I was just having this conversation with somebody today. You think about when we talk about the great quarterbacks of all time, Peyton Manning's in the conversation, right? Peyton Manning, as a rookie in Indianapolis, set the all-time record for most interceptions. They went 2-14 or something like that. Like, not everything is a Disney movie and a magic carpet ride here. Sometimes you need to get your teeth kicked in a little bit just to understand what this whole thing's about. And if you're a really good team, you're not putting the rookie in because you're not going to disrupt the apple cart. This is, look, the C.J. Stroud thing, the Jaden Daniels thing happens so rarely now. Go see what you got. Go see what the kid's going to give you.
Don't you risk, though, crushing them if you knock their teeth down their throat? Like, sometimes guys don't bounce back from that. Like, they get so crushed and dispirited and
Sam Darnold.
disenchanted that they never rebound.
Well, if you can't, then you're probably in the wrong business. Right? I mean, Troy Aikman went 1-15 as a rookie. Look, there's a reason Drake May was taken 3rd overall. It's because his team was the 3rd worst team in football.
I just don't. I feel like
But Drake May is not Troy Aikman or Peyton Manning.
he's more Kyle
Caleb
Orton.
Williams went 1, and Jaden Daniels goes 2, and they're playing. Like, you only have really 3.5 years to make an evaluation. Not even, because you have to make a decision at the end of year 3 whether or not you're going to give that quarterback or give your first-round pick the guaranteed 5th year. So you have 3 years to make a decision. Your body of work and your sample size has to be based on that. So when are you going to start that? When are you going to start that clock? Because it's ticking already.
Year 2, at least 2, maybe into 2. I'm trying to think. So, like, who are the famous ones that had to sit and wait? And mind you, he's watching Jacoby Brissett. He's not watching it be great, but we got Mahomes.
Yeah.
We have
Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Jordan Love. Green Bay seems to do it right. Can we call Green Bay? Do you have a book that we can read on how to do this properly? Because, but
It's
I don't know.
Infuriating. It's so infuriating. Like, I'm a Vikings fan. Like, are we serious here? First they go Favre, Rodgers, Love. Now we're watching Rodgers implode and Devontae Adams implode. And meanwhile, these guys on this cow pasture in Wisconsin are just continuing to win football games. Like, it just drives me nuts. But yes, it kills me to say they're the model. They do it right.
So five games in, everything's hunky-dory so far. But in Washington, is there not a little bit of RG3 syndrome watch going on here? Like, too fast, too soon, burn bright, and then they're kind of like, we've seen this story before.
Yeah, but I mean, RG3 was on this trajectory until his knee shattered in a million pieces. You know, I mean, that was one of the worst ACLs. I don't know. Oh, first of all, that turf in Washington, because Alex Smith, it happened to him too, except his was even worse. I wonder what happens with Robert Griffin III, if not for that injury, because then he tried to come back a little too soon from it, and then it just went kind of sideways from there. Fellas, I'm going to tell you this, and I know the sample size is small. I cannot remember a rookie quarterback in professional football ever this poised, this polished as Jaden Daniels. He is him. He is it. The throws to McLaurin, the back shoulder, the awareness, the poise, the game manager, the command of the huddle. I'm like, wow.
He looks good.
Daniel's a special man.
So switching gears quickly, what is your take on this Manny Machado debacle with Ryan Roberts or Dave Roberts? Is it much ado about nothing? Is it blown out of proportion?
I can't wait to watch.
And I think there's going to be some fireworks tonight. I do, even though both teams are going to be told, beforehand not to. I am shocked that it's coming from Dave Roberts. Dave Roberts was in the teeth of the Red Sox-Yankees rivalry. When Boston came back from 3 games down to knock off the Yankees in that infamous ALCS, Dave Roberts stole a couple of bags. Dave's feelings were hurt because his former player threw a ball towards him with a little zip on it, knowing the net was there? Really, Dave? Yes, it's much ado about nothing. It's a rivalry. It's October baseball. It's gamesmanship. It's try and get into their head. It's all those things. Manny Machado doesn't care. This is who and what Manny Machado has always been as a ball player.
When you go, I talked. I don't know if I saw this on your socials or whatever. The payrolls and where do the Blue Jays rank? Let's say compared to the Kansas City Royals, that are playing postseason hardball.
Okay, so the Royals and Yankees are 1-1 in their divisional series. Series going back to KC, tied. Okay, the Royals' payroll this year is $84 million. The Yankees' payroll is $260, more than triple. The Blue Jay payroll was over $200 this year. This again illustrates the failure that was the Blue Jay season on so many levels. And the Royals have young dudes, man. Bobby Witt Jr. is the truth. He is it. He is already showing to be the next one. But this is the thing, you pay this money to get in, and then you pay this money for your guys to perform, and Aaron Judge has vanished. Again, small sample size. I hate to say it, Mookie Betts has disappeared. These are the guys you're paying the money for to do these things. It may be unfair because, you pay them for 180 or 190 games overall. But this is as our pal John Gibbons would say, it's nut cutting time, and these guys aren't cutting it.
I love rooting for the team that gets in under, budget.
Yes.
They get into the dance in a Chev Corsica where everyone else is driving Escalades. I absolutely love it. Okay, lastly,
Corsica. How about that one?
Hey, that was my high school. That was my high school ride right there. Sweet 6x9s, aftermarket 6x9s in that bad boy though. Arash. Let's go hockey here. Season starts today, North America style. Canadian teams in action tomorrow. If we look at the Canadian teams, we've got Victor Findlay coming up. I know you know Victor from the Montreal Canadiens play-by-play guy. He's coming up in hour 3 here. We're going to talk a little Habs for all the Western Hab fans that love him out here. Who are we thinking as far as delusional fan base when it comes to Canadian teams this year going in?
Well, look, if you're talking about a delusional fan base, it starts, ends, beginning, middle, end, for, time immemorial. The delusional fan base outside here, the Toronto Maple Leafs, come on.
Max Pacioretty isn't going to take, they're not hoisting that cup with Pacioretty there?
I don't know if this might be a first, fellas, that a one-time Montreal Canadiens captain is suiting up as a Maple Leaf. I think that might be a first. Here's the team that I think kind of sneaks under the radar this year a little bit, just because they haven't been relevant since 2017, and it feels longer, is the Ottawa Senators. Mm-hmm. They added themselves a goaltender this offseason. They made a couple of nice little sneaky moves. Brady Tkachuk's ready to take that next step. There's a lot of kind of internal guys ready, Drake Batherson, to me, look, I'm a Nova Scotian. I'm rooting for him. I just think Ottawa's kind of in that conversation. I think it's going to be another dreadful season in Calgary. It's all this draft capital, etc. I think it's going to be really tough sledding out there. And the team that I have no idea about, because so much of who and what they are is goaltending, and Thatcher Demko ain't healthy, is Vancouver. I think they're the biggest question mark of all the Canadian teams. Other than that, I think you kind of know where everyone stands.
I wonder if maybe it's Ottawa. I wonder if we see a Vancouver of last year. Remember? Because let's be honest, going into last year's season, no one was really saying, oh, watch what Tocchet does with these guys. No, you're lying if you're saying that. You looked in the mirror and was like, well, maybe we can win a few hockey games. Is there a team like that out there? Because there always is. I don't know if it is going to be a Canadian team this year. Winnipeg,
if Linus Ullmark plays out of it, I think if they get good goaltending in Ottawa, because then the Senators can go. Look, it's also year one of a new owner, right? It's year one of a new owner who wants to revitalize that entire city and remove the stain of Eugene Melnyk and the bitter taste in the fan base, win over the fan base, and they're getting a new arena. They're going to be starting in LeBreton Flats, nearish to downtown, nearish to the Quebec border. This is a way to really kind of say, look, it's the new Senators. We're different than everybody else. They're doing on Thursday nights retro concession prices. They're really trying to get people back on board.
Yes, I love it. Selling darts.
You don't need to spend $19 for a draft beer on Thursdays. So they're doing all the things to try and get people on board.
They're going to bring in Carling O'Keefe's.
Right.
After 2 years of splitting, is Allmark ready for that increased workload? And it's going to be even heavier because is he ready to start 64 games this year?
Yeah, I mean, look, we'll see. I mean, it's a great question. I don't know. Here, Joseph Woll, man, I looked yesterday, 26 games started last year. I mean, his numbers are incredible, but when you're not available to play because of injury, an old GM once told me, what's the difference between a garbage player and an injured player? I'm like, I don't know, man. And his answer was nothing, because neither are of any use to me. So if you're not available to play, yeah. And it wasn't garbage. He used a different term, but, it's a family show.
Yeah, sometimes you got to throw it like it is. Are you wearing your Minnesota Vikings shirt again today?
I am, just for the show.
Yes, I love it.
I may wear this every Tuesday, Victory Tuesday instead of Victory Monday,
How's this tune?
Oh.
Does that one sting when you hear it?
Nah, because we went into Lambeau 10 days ago and kicked their ass. So, yeah. No. Oh, wait, I guess it's a family show. Oops.
Hey, bye week. Embrace it. Embrace it.
It's the best week for a fan. Your team can't lose. Your team can't get any players injured. I mean, they may get a couple arrested, but that's a different story for another
Harry
day.
brought up such a good point where Sam Darnold is just sitting there going to the Jets. Laughing from a beach in Aruba, wherever he is in the offseason. All right, let's talk Thursday.
See you, boys. Thank you.
Right on. Arash Madani, coast to coast for Brian Golly, Smart Investing Solutions. Time for a break. Thanks if you're watching that stream, sportscage.com, or listening, as always, on 620 CKRM. Holy jumpin', as Darren Pang would say, the SaskTel pick the scores. I usually don't give people's names when they send them in, but Curtis is predicting a high-scoring affair, and he's taken the BC Lions by 8 in a 42-34 victory. So a real shootout. He's thinking that Nathan Rourke and Harris go toe-to-toe, a mano Saturday. If you want to get in on that, pick the score. The number is 936-6262, Capital Ford Lincoln text line. We need to know your name, number, where you're from. And then Colson's going to do the Wheel of Winning. Someone's going to win 2 tickets to the game this weekend. And then if you're in, you also have a chance to win a $200 SaskTel gift card. Professional Hockey League North America started today. Colson, you got an update on that game?
Yeah, it is now the end of the second with the Kraken and Blues. Blues are up 3-2. All the goals have been scored in the second.
Harry, are you following that one as well?
Yeah, Kairu's got 2 of them.
Kairu?
Yeah.
Wow.
Not Caillou, but Kairu.
Caillou. Right on. What was that show again? It was called Caillou.
Caillou.
Oh,
Yeah.
We wouldn't let our kids watch it. He was
Nobody
the
let their kids
whiniest,
watch it. Yeah.
the whiniest little you know what. And
Yeah.
I was like, why would you expose your kids to you're asking for trouble, parents.
Oh.
Caillou, I totally forgot about that. Curtis and Colson, if you guys have kids in the next little bit, let them watch Caillou. Lots of Caillou.
This will make you feel great. I grew up watching Caillou, so
What?
that was the later years of it. But yeah, no, I didn't watch much of it, to be fair. My parents were like you. They were like, no, no, that's not a great show. Doesn't
And another piece of the
show
puzzle
kids in a
falls
good
into
light.
place.
I was watching that Menendez brothers monster. I'm sure you've watched it, Harry. You're big on
Started
Netflix
it, yep.
yesterday. It starts out. I think you had me sucked in, and then now it's like, all right, wrap it up here. It gets really weird. At times. Yeah. So
The homoerotic undertones are very blatant between the brothers, which is weird.
It's a weird program, that's for sure. I also started that Tragically Hip one. I think that's on a different platform. I need to finish that one because you know me, I was never a hip guy until like my late teens and all that, and then you started going through. Well, what was it? I sent it. Wasn't it the
Fully Completely?
30th anniversary of Fully Completely?
No, it was 92.
90, yeah, it was released in 92, so that was 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Jeez. That was everybody had it but me.
That's 32 years ago, dude. That's a long time for anniversary for that album.
That had Courage on it, didn't? On 50 Mission Cap.
Yes. Yeah.
Courage.
Wheat Kings.
100th Meridian. Was Wheat Kings on that one?
Yeah. I think, and Locked in the Trunk of a Car.
Locked in the Trunk of a Car. It doesn't show Wheat Kings though.
Yeah, I think it's on there. It's that disc. For sure.
Courage. Like, yeah. I look back at myself now, and if I could do the old go back and talk to 16 or 17-year-old Barney and be like, dude, listen, be like everybody else and listen to these guys, because some of that, like in that documentary, it talks about the 50 Mission Cap, how he basically just picked up the card and wrote the song, like the hockey card.
Yeah,
it's just mind blowing.
Yeah,
and then. Yeah, like they just could never make it in the States, though.
No, they never really broke through.
Eastern,
like they should have.
Eastern Seaboard, like they kind of did have some traction in that Boston, that New England area. I remember because guys I played with were like, oh yeah, no, we've heard of the Hip, but they're like playing, in front of 1,200 in off Boylston Street. Then they're coming up and packing Sask Place. Like it was wild, and it kind of goes through that. Yeah. So interesting. Wow. How many years did you say?
32. 32 years ago.
32
It makes a guy feel really old.
Yeah, I skated the other night for the first time this year. Talk about feeling old. I used to make fun of everybody, my brother-in-laws and all that. It's like, come on, like it's just come on, play. And then now I'm like, if I had to go back-to-back days, like if I had to skate yesterday, no thanks, no deal, too old. Still a lot to come when it comes on the show. Glen Suitor, see what he has to say. I guess about I'm curious what he has to think about Edmonton and where the Elks organization goes from here. If it's a total clean of the house down to the studs. I'm interested to get his take on that. As we talked about, it's for Southie Mainline Chrysler every week. Southie Mainline Chrysler right now, you get $18,000 off select Ram 1500s, the newest king of truck in Southie, Saskatchewan. Worth the drive every time, guaranteed. We are going to be talking SJHL hockey when we come back with Benny Walchuk. It's the All New SportsCage. Thanks if you're watching the stream at sportscage.com or on 620 CKRM. All right, it is now time for the SJHL Report. The SJHL Report is brought to you by Southie Mainline Chrysler, the newest king of trucks in Southie, Saskatchewan. $1,500 bonus cash on Jeep Cherokees right now. 15% off Pacificas if you're in the market for a Pacifica. $18,000. $18,000 off select Ram 1500s. They're the new king of trucks in Southie, Saskatchewan. Worth the drive every time. Benny, you would look good in a Pacifica cruising to one of those games this past weekend. Now, I got to tell you, we said the Southie Mainline Chrysler game of the week, worth the drive, was going to be Melfort and Melville, the home and home. It lived up to it, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Heavyweight tilt on Friday nights, and the Millionaires were able to play a pretty good road game. That's only the second time they've won there in about 6 or 7 years at the Northern Lights Palace. So they got off to a good start, and then had good goaltending from Loic Morin in that game. And then going into Saturday, just another heavyweight tilt, back and forth effort. Millionaires probably should have won that game as well. Just a couple of undisciplinary penalties late in that game, and then a power play goal in overtime to win it for the Melfort Mustangs. But still, a great tilt between two very evenly matched teams. When you look at break it down, offense, defense, special teams, coaching, it's pretty much a hacksaw right down the middle. So just another heck of a series between those two teams, and I'm sure it's not the last time these two teams will meet, and maybe a possible series going forward.
Quickly, we were talking about it on the show last week. Although they lose Sunday to Humboldt, the Yorkton Terriers last week picked up a little more experience in the 20-year-old variety.
Yeah, they did. Keenan Ingram is a guy. It's Emery, the head coach in Yorkton, coached Keenan actually in the KIJHL a couple of years ago, so he's familiar with Keenan, but he's a guy that scored 24 goals last year, split between Kindersley and Fort McMurray, and just he's a pure type of goal scorer. I think they Terriers did a good job of kind of getting into the net and scoring those garbage goals, but they want to make sure when it gets tougher and later in the season or in these tough tight checking games against the top teams in the league, they want to score from the outside and be better on the power play. So that's the guy that brought in, and he paid dividends early on with the goal there on Sunday.
I like that move, right? When especially in the SJ and the Junior A, they go looking to other leagues and they try and kind of sew up that, like you said, this is for a pure goal scorer. SportsCage SJHL Power Rankings. Let's go to that first. And how did we come up with where we're landing?
Well, first off, it is not just me making these picks, so I don't know, everybody thinks that might be just me, but it's a contributor. There's about 5 or 6 guys that got watched a lot of junior hockey around the league. They kind of compile the picks, and they rank them 1 to 12, and then we average out the scores. And then this week it was the Melville Millionaires coming on top. So that's our third different number one team in our power rankings in the last 3 weeks. But they're the only team right now that's playing very good hockey. They're a team that's the only team that hasn't lost in regulations time so far. So, but it's pretty tough. It's when you get down to nitty gritty there, the 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's kind of hard to kind of fumble and put where guys go in that rankings. But it's a great to kind of put it together, kind of talk with the other people across the province, across Saskatchewan, the western part, the north, the southeast, and compile the rankings. But this week it is the money men who vault to the top spots in our power rankings.
If you want to go check that out, you go to sportscage.com and it's on there. Player of the week coming, the Red Wings forward was one of them down in Weyburn. What do you know about Jerome? How do you say his last name?
Maharaj.
What do you know about Jerome Maharaj down there in Weyburn?
Yeah, Jerome is a guy that played last year with Weyburn and had a heck of a season. He led one of the leading scorers for the Red Wings last year. Then he elected to go to the BCHL to start the season, and then just sometimes it just doesn't work out there. And then Cody Mapes welcomes him back after their slow start, and he got off and running with 5 assists. And they added a couple more guys. I know Ethan Dake, who's got a scholarship to Michigan Tech. They added him up front as well. So Cody Mapes did a lot of moves this past week to kind of reshuffle their roster, bringing in some guys he's familiar with, bringing in some new guys to shuffle the deck a little bit. And Jerome is a guy that's going to be one of the top scorers in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. He's got good speed. He can finish, and he's a great, entertaining, talented player. So it's a guy that definitely was credited with his efforts from this past week.
Any other award winners this week of note?
Yeah, you look like Jacob Strizzy. I thought he had a good week. I know Humboldt Broncos maybe after a little bit of a slow start and maybe kind of got a bitter taste in their mouth after suffering that tough loss to Yorkton just over a week ago. But he had 5 points to be named the SJHL Forward of the Week. You had Vincent Palmery, and the other guy that came back from the BCHL with Notre Dame Hounds. He was the Defenseman of the Week. And then Massimo Urbani of the Flin Flon Bombers, the goalie of the week. Jackson Herchuk, who's committed to Colorado College and one of those very, very talented rookies. He was named the Rookie of the Week. And, of course, Gavin Granger of the Saskatoon area, and the Battleford North Stars was your Canterra Seat Saskatchewan Player of the Week. So it was a great little kind of you look at the mixture of different teams. Not one team dominated the Players of the Week, which is great to see some parity across the league.
Quickly, CJHL top 20 and the top 10. Melfort sitting at 10, and we got Melville at 6. Other than that, no SJ teams in the top 10. Yorkton, they're dropping down to 12. All right, Benny, Southie, Mainline, Chrysler, worth the drive, game of the week this week. I know we got like 3 games tonight, which, Tuesday here, we've already talked about it a bit, but game of the week or games of the week, what would Benny Walchuk say?
I think you have to look to the weekend. The finals rematch from last year is the second time they played. Melfort and Flin Flon are going to be playing a home-and-home series this weekend at the Whitney Forum and the Northern Lights Palace. So that should be another great showdown. And I'm looking at Humboldt and Battleford. Humboldt playing some pretty good hockey right now, kind of finding their groove under Braden Klamosko. And, of course, Braden was the head coach and general manager of the Battleford North Stars the last handful of years and was very, very successful, winning a couple league titles there. So he goes back to North Battleford. I know Battleford's going through a little bit of a coaching a change right now with Gary Childerhost, their head coach and GM, stepping down from his position. So they've added interim coach, plus they've had some coaches filling in. So I'm looking forward to those 2 matchups and very intriguing to see how those play out here this weekend.
Nothing better than cruising the Hanson Lake Highway in a Ram 1500. So you got $18,000 off at Southie, Mainline, Chrysler. They got the Pacifica deal and the bonus cash on Cherokees. Worth the drive to Southie every time. Thanks to them for hopping on as a sponsor of the SJHL Report. All right, Benny, you have a good, busy. First off, I know it's the SJHL Report, but let's give a plug for the football team as well. What do you got this week football-wise?
Yeah, for sure. And before we get to football, I just want to give a props. My good friend growing up was Jessica Campbell. And, of course, Jess is going to be the first female, and she probably was already today with the game happening earlier today. And Jess is a really good friend of mine, and she's the first female to be assistant coach with the Seattle Kraken in the National Hockey League. So I just want to give big props to Jessica. I grew up with her since I was 6 or 7 years old. So congratulations, Jess. Congratulations to Gary and Monique, because her parents from Rocanville area that are probably hopefully tuning in are going to be very, very proud of their daughter. So I just want to give that. And then football-wise, we got junior football happening actually in a moment's time here on the field right now against the 15-22 Rams, which is my cousin Craig Geisler, Gubba. Of course, he's coaching the other side. It's a little bit of a cousin matchup tonight. And then we got the Indian Head Bronx and Malville Cobras coming up on Thursday at the Snake Pit in Malville. It's a battle for first place in the Conference 3 9-a-side division. So it's a busy week here for hockey. I'm going to be off actually in Manitoba for the MJHL tomorrow with Swan Valley. Then a couple of football games there, kind of in the outside in between. So it's a busy week, but looking forward to it. Weather's pretty nice outside still.
Yeah, it is. It is nice. Okay, well, you got a busy week, Benny. Thanks so much. Yeah, go Jess. there. That's a big deal as well. Forgot you guys were childhood friends. That's pretty cool. All right, travel safe, Ben.
No problem. Thanks a lot, Barney.
Right on. That is the SJHL report for Southie Mainline Chrysler. Worth the drive every time in Southie, Saskatchewan, guaranteed. Still more to come. You are listening to the Sports Cage on 620 CKRM and watching the stream at sportscage.com. Pick the Score is going on. I just noticed that. Jimmy Mickleborough, shout out. He says he's north of Belle Plaine. Being specific on where he's from. A lot of rider picks now on the rider Pick the Score. We teed it up earlier when we had Dave Thomas on. This dance, the Saskatchewan Samba, as Dave's talking about it, and Kean Schaefer-Baker's kind of getting involved, getting jiggy with it, as the kids say. He talks about it in this interview, but first and foremost, they talk about getting into the playoffs.
Kean, what does it mean to be going back into the playoffs?
It's truly a blessing, something I've been chasing since 2021. So just to be back, it's a surreal feeling and something we've been believing and chasing from before this season even started. Just to be back in this position, we're not going to take it for granted and seize this opportunity.
Do you breathe a sigh of relief perhaps in clinching a playoff spot or no?
Not at all, because the job's not finished. That's just the first stepping stone. That one doesn't even mean anything. It's having that banner hanging up in our stadium after November 17th.
So how do you continue to move forward? Obviously, you know what's on the line this weekend against BC.
Yep. Just keeping it one day at a time, just stacking brick by brick and just looking to improve to 1-0 this week. That's all we can take care of. That's all we can focus on, and we just got to control what we can control, and that's to come out and dominate on Saturday.
Kean, I know what a team guy first you are, but you did get to a career milestone, your 200th catch last week in Edmonton. Sounds like you didn't even know.
I had no idea. As long as we go out there and get the win, that's all I'm happy and excited for.
200 is a lot of balls, though. Do you remember the first catch you made?
I do remember the first one here on this field. Hopefully I get another 200. And then another 600.
Well, before we let you go, I have to ask a question on behalf of the fans. 2 weeks ago, we saw you do it here with Trevor. We saw Samuel do it in Edmonton. Is it the Saskatchewan Samba, or what is that dance that happens in the end zone? Is there a name for it?
We haven't come up with a name for it just yet, but I like the Saskatchewan Samba, what you just said right there. That one sounds pretty good. Yeah, we're just showing that we got a little hip work. We got some hip movement. And just like Shakira said, them hips don't lie.
Well, let's go ahead and keep this thing rolling. Kean, thanks so much for doing this.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you lots.
Yeah, the Samba. What were you going to say?
You stole your line. Hips don't lie, Shakira.
Hips don't lie, Shakira. Yes, if anyone knows her, let her know I had a crush on her back in 2002. No, it's cool. I don't mind the little bit of dancing in the end zone. But the putting on of the mask, which I don't get, and the using of the props, like I said, I don't know what's next. Is people going to be bringing their pets? It's like, oh, an interception. That's his dog, Winnie, in the sideline. It just seems odd. A lot more to get to. We are going to talk. You know a lot of Montreal Canadian fans, right? Like the Prairies.
Yeah. Too many.
I feel like we always talk about the Western teams here. Let's give some love to the Montreal Canadian fans. So we got that coming up in hour 2. And then when we come back right after news, we're going to talk CFL football. We're going press coverage with Glen Suitor. Thank you for watching. Everybody out there that's tuning in right now on the sportscage.com and listening on 620 CKRM. A lot of people trying to get in on SaskTel Pick the Score. An hour left of the program. Barney Shynkaruk, Chris Harris, soon to be joined by Glen Suitor here. And as expected, a lot of people are picking the green and white to win on Saturday. If you want your pick, text it in. And we need your name, number, where you're from. And then you have a chance to win a $200 SaskTel gift card. It's all brought to you by SaskTel. Harry, the Mets are up. Hardball postseason action 4-0 on the Phillies. Are you getting in to baseball now that it's postseason?
I love October baseball. There's really I don't want to say there's nothing like it because there's lots of things like it, but I do love postseason. It's such an expression that's overused so much.
It is.
There's nothing like it. There's nothing like. There's lots of things like it. It's awesome. I do love postseason baseball. To be honest with you, I don't really watch a whole game throughout the whole course of the season.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on standings and stuff, but come postseason, I would it wouldn't be odd for me to watch a whole game or all the games.
Anything playoffs when it matters, whether it's soccer, like World Cup, like I get into it. And then I'm into this Dodgers-Padres game tonight just because of the chirpiness of it all. But I agree with you. There's nothing like it. No, there is. or else the other day, somebody on social media had this, don't get me wrong, we have really nice sunsets here in Saskatchewan. But somebody said, where would you rather be? And then where would a sunset or something rather be with a sunset like this? And I messaged Waikiki, and it was like, it's one of those expressions that's overused as well. Let's get it going to CFL talk here with our man.
The All New SportsCage with CFL and Saskatchewan Rough Rider legend Glen Suitor is brought to you by Quality Tire. With 9 locations across Saskatchewan, visit qualitytire.ca.
Glenn, you get some nice sunsets out there on the West Coast. I bet you'd put those up against some of the Sasky ones.
Oh, hey, well, I love the big sky in Saskatchewan, don't get me wrong, but there's some beautiful ones out here too. I mean, to be on a fishing boat in the summer trying to catch a salmon, and you look down the rod that is on the downrigger, and through the rod is the sun setting. That's a pretty cool look while you're kind of floating in the water. And then, Waikiki I would put up there. One of the other things that is said all the time, because you guys are bang on, like there's nothing like it. Yeah, there's lots like it. Is this one unacceptable? It is absolutely unacceptable. I hear that all the time, and I go, well, they did accept it. I mean, they did it. So I guess it wasn't that unacceptable.
The new one too, I feel it's more in the last 10 years. He's the GOAT or she's the GOAT.
Right.
Or the GOAT. And I'm like, but is it? Is it really? No, last night, Glenn, what was the Northern Lights where they were dancing? I think that's what we say. The Northern Lights were dancing here, even all the way down in Regina. The missus and I were having a nice little hot tub outside, and it's like, whoa, look at those things. We call the kids out. As soon as they come out, they're gone. And then, but then they had the wherewithal to go to the front and be like, oh no, they're still there. But anybody up north, like I'm seeing the Fort McMurray pictures, Harry up, Waskasoo and all that. They look amazing right now. And for people that have never seen them, that, a lot of new Canadians or people that just aren't from here, they're like, wow, what is it? It's like, you can get paintings. Glenn Scrimshaw paints a nice Northern Lights painting that you can get for your house.
Well, guys, like when I go up to do the dog's breakfast, I usually fly into Regina because I'm going to visit with people after the dog's breakfast up in Saskatoon. And it seems that every year I rent my car, I get in it as the sun is rising, driving down the highway to Saskatoon. And I always comment on Twitter. I almost never go on Twitter rather than to retweet things that I see, sometimes from the show or whatever that we're doing. But I always feel compelled to go, I love this big sky on a sunrise going on that highway to Saskatoon every single year.
There's nothing like this sunrise. You got to use that. I'm going to be waiting for it in May. I'm going to be waiting for it. You know what? Hey, the Riders get half of the job done, I guess, as far as getting into the playoffs last weekend in Edmonton against the Elks. When you look at that game, Glenn, how do you assess it? Where were you impressed with how the Riders stuck with it? They pulled it out.
Yeah, a couple things. One, on the road against a very good defense. Defense has played really well in the last month and a half in Edmonton, and the big plays, the response to drives. So McLeod Bethel Thompson goes down the field. They were in the first half leading in that regard. So it was like the Riders were chasing Edmonton to begin with in that game, and they kept doing it. So big drive by MBT. He'd go down and score. Then Trevor Harris comes out and matches it. He comes right back and doesn't let that momentum snowball on them. So that's important heading into the playoffs, that you can kind of stop it in its tracks, even if you don't score a major, but you go down and kick a field goal, or you go down and change field position with 4 or 5 first downs. That is really important in a playoff game, that, you know, bad things are going to happen to you. The other team gets paid and they're going to score too. Yeah. So what do you have? What's your next play? What's the answer? And some of the big plays, that big play to Sam Emelis, some of those great catches that were being made out there, they had a response offensively. I think that'll bode well.
You know what? It's funny because I went back, I taped it, went back and watched the game. And then I'm sitting there watching Harris, and I go back and I'm like, oh, look at that. Look at his eyes. 1, 2, and he just pulls Purifoy just a smidge. Hey, Harry, remember when he turns his hips? When he turns his hips, take him to the flag. When he turns his hips, whatever, right? And then I listened to you, and then I think Luke and Dave were talking about it also. And then right away, you're like, see how he looks at, and then just as soon as that's safety. But that is, let's be honest, that's a confident QB, and that's a confident throw. To put it on the money and that timing, I just feel, Glenn, like, and I know he's taken a lot of darts as well here when we were in that losing streak, just because it's typical Sasky. But when he gets the protection, I'm putting him up against anybody in the league.
Yeah, about a month and a half ago, we were talking about Trevor, and they were struggling at the time and in that losing skid. And, I watched him. It was like a half, and I can't remember exactly who they were playing, as a matter of fact, but I thought, there's not a more accurate pocket passer in the league. And with his experience and also how he works at it. I mean, you guys talk to him behind the scenes. You talk to him a lot during the week. He is putting the work in, and it's legit caring about his teammates, leading the team, that kind of thing. So when you add all those up, about a month and a half ago on this show, I was like, this is a guy. He's taken the team to the promised land before. This is a guy you can get there with. Give him time, mix in a really good run games with some balance, and play, good defensive football, which they are very capable of, with maybe the MOP in the league in their secondary. Yeah, here's what it is, though, guys. Here's a challenge for the fans, isn't it? I mean, this coming weekend, it's Plaza of Honor, and this coming weekend is basically for home field in the playoffs, which will be huge. And Winnipeg's selling out. Montreal has sold out. There it is, Rider fans. There you go. Let's go. Let's get out there and see if we can fill the building.
How about this one, fellas? There's no bigger game. I had to throw it in. Go ahead, Harry. Sorry.
I was going to switch gears, but you made a good point. So let's play devil's advocate. Regina doesn't sell out. What has to happen, or what is missing, or what is the problem if they don't sell it out after those other cities do, with this big of a game, with this much on the line? Like, what can be done?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, I think if it is an issue, and it's, forget about close to a sellout. Let's say it's not a great crowd. I think the weather looks fairly good for that night, so that shouldn't be a problem. And I hear the thing about TV is taking people and all of that. That's silly, because you can TiVo a game, or not TiVo. That's
yes. Shout out 1990. Here we go.
That was a long time ago. Someone just said that on one of the late night talk shows. That's why it was in my mind. Anyway,
Glenn, hold on. Before any further, next time I want you to say, I saw him calling on my Maestro. Remember, though, that was like the first phone.
Yeah. No, you know what? There's a lot of things. Like if we were sitting, at a bar and talking about all the things and different ideas that you could try to re-engage the fans. But at the end of the day, the fan experience is excellent. The atmosphere is excellent. I have full confidence that the Rider fans will step up in the big games, whether it be this game or if they get home field and host a playoff game. Because in football, as you guys know, home field is massive. First of all, it's worth 2 or 3 key illegal procedure calls by the offense of the opposing team, which means you're in 1st and 15 or 2nd and 15 if it's on second down, and that is the difference of a 2-and-out or not a 2-and-out. It makes a massive difference when the opposing quarterback cannot communicate to his receivers, has a hard time checking at the line of scrimmage. I know a lot of fans go home hoarse and they're like, man, I got to be careful when I'm at Rider games because I can't talk at work the next day. But it matters, and it really, really helps the home team.
And the bottom line, let's be honest.
Yeah,
right?
Great.
That's how it makes the world go around. Yeah, that money, right? That lettuce for sure. I would like to see a big crowd. The other thing, Glenn, is let's remember that, early November, if by chance, knock on wood, whatever, if BC comes back here, who knows what we're sitting in for weather?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's just it. And here's a bigger even. Let's pull farther back from the whole thing. If you have young kids and you have a chance to go to this big game in the atmosphere or a playoff game in the atmosphere that a playoff game would bring, and the sudden death urgency of a playoff game, which, as you guys know, like hockey, I mean, I'm always mesmerized by hockey playoffs as opposed to regular season playoffs and how drastically different it is. I mean, just speed and no space and physicality and all of it just goes up. And I don't even think the athlete realizes it, but they're doing it. If you could bottle that in the regular season, you'd win every game. But, if you have kids and you have a chance to go to a playoff game, go to a Grey Cup game, that gets you to the final, take advantage of it, because there are sometimes teams that go long droughts without making the playoffs. I wasn't there for all 11, but I remember coming in, I don't know, maybe it was around 5 or 6 into Saskatchewan, and there was 7 years that we didn't make the playoffs, didn't make it. And there was no chance for a young family to go to a playoff game at home. And if you get that opportunity, take it, because winning is very difficult, and you don't want to take it for granted.
One thing that you kind of touched on, or we kind of all have said again, and it seems like it's a familiar refrain after a lot of the wins this year, where we say the Riders pulled it out. Now, come playoff time, obviously when you look at the positive side of it, winning those close games is an advantage. But when it comes playoff time, and you've done that all year, can it also work against you where, you've pulled out a lot of games that maybe shouldn't have won, didn't deserve to win, and then come playoff time, you maybe, to use a hockey term, you kind of squeeze your stick a little tighter because you're in an unfamiliar territory. So all those close wins, can it have a adverse effect?
I guess so. I think for the most part, it goes the other way, that it helps you to believe in the process. I think when you win close games, especially this year has been so tight. And I want to say it's about 70% of the games have been decided in the final 3 minutes. And when you think about that, all the teams this year, especially in the West, have had the training that they believe they could be down 14 going into the fourth quarter, but they still believe that there's a chance to come back. I mean, when you get snowballed in a game is when you stop believing and self-doubt creeps in and you start thinking, there's not really any chance. You fight it and it's subconscious and you're really trying to do your best you can every down, but something's just not, that extra little step is not there. And, I think these close games can help you train to say, we've been here before. The process is right because we've come out at the right end of these games. So keep with it. And the leaders in the huddle, in the middle of stuff going completely haywire in a game, like let's say you give up a 70-yard touchdown throw early in the first quarter and your defense comes in and Jameer Thurman looks every guy in the eye there and he says, guys, we've been here before. And he really has. It's not fake enthusiasm to try and rah-rah the guys back. It's real. They look them in the eye and they all go, yeah, we're good. And they keep battling. So, I think that belief system that is built because of those close game wins, I think that can really help them.
I'm going to keep the Plaza stuff for Thursday, Glenn, because that's Plaza, and then we can touch on it on Thursday. But I wanted to ask you, before we let you go, what do you think is going to happen in Edmonton?
Well, they have a chance to, really reset that team. And I'll be surprised if the new ownership there doesn't sort of, first of all, they had to bring in a president, because you guys know that the trickle-down effect from the president's role goes to GM, then GM to coach, then coach to assistant coaches, and so on. So until they hire the president, which I'm hearing they're very close, maybe in the next couple of days, maybe it's as we get close to the end of the regular season, but they're down to a few guys, I think, and they're getting real close on that. And then we can kind of understand what they're going to do. But the writing, to me, has been on the wall with regards to Trey Ford and just that the current coaching staff, the current, maybe even G. Roy Simon as a GM, I'm not sure how much they believe in Trey Ford. I think he'll play the next couple of games. But if you're him, who's becoming a free agent at the end of the year, how do you feel about the fact that in the last two games, he wasn't even considered as a starter? Mm-hmm. And those were the two games they had to have to keep their playoff hopes alive. And now that they're out of the playoffs, they're saying, okay, now we want to play Trey Ford and see how he does. I just think that would be tough for Trey Ford. I know he'll take full advantage of this opportunity to get out there and play, but I'm talking about the future. And he becomes a free agent at the end of the year. Does Edmonton believe in him or not? That's the question that has to be answered.
Well, Todd, we'll see how that unfolds. And like I said, we'll get the Plaza talk on Thursday. Have a good night, my man. A couple days, we'll catch up with you again.
Thanks, gentlemen. Take care.
Right on. Press coverage. Glen Suitor for Quality Tire, 9 locations across this beautiful province where sunsets are like no other.
It's nothing like them.
No, it's great. Still more to come. We got Victor Findlay coming up, play-by-play voice of the Montreal Canadiens. We're still doing SaskTel, pick the score for people that trying to win rider tickets. And then, can I do it? Can I give out the code word as well? And then, you know what? If you've been tuning in or you just tuned in, it's your lucky time right now. For the next half hour, you can also text 936-6262. Just, what word do you want to go with?
It's riders, I think.
Riders. Colson's making the call. It's riders. So you got a chance to win tickets that way. Separately, you can also do SaskTel Pick the Score. We're just giving things away here. We just like when people, you know what? There's no show. It's like no other. It's a show like no other. It's a Sports Cage. SportsCage.com and on 620 CKRM.
The All New Sports Cage is brought to you by Busy Bee Doors. Busy Bee will repair or replace your residential or commercial garage doors so you don't get stuck in or out.
Always, what are you laughing about over there?
I'm just thinking about all those stupid cliches that the athletes and media use all the time that drive me crazy.
Yeah, the GOAT. He's the GOAT. He's the GOAT of cliches. SportsCage.com. If you're watching the stream, SportsCage.com is also where you can go up-to-date news on the riders or whatever, the stories of WHL. Little just got up there a couple hours ago. Swift Current Broncos making a trade. Western Hockey League, you can go check that out there. Also, the story on the end of the season for Sean Bain Jr. Unfortunate news there for the Riders. Coach Mace did talk to media today. Dave Thomas caught up with him after practice.
Well, first off, Coach, is the plan for A.J. Ouellette to return to the lineup this week?
We'll see. He's banked a couple weeks now. But, we still have Frankie, Q's out there practicing. So we'll see how it goes by the end of the week.
What goes into that decision?
Yeah, good decision. I mean, even Frankie as well. And obviously, having Thomas on the roster helps too. So I think, it's at that point of the season now. We're getting some guys back. It's a good problem to have. When you have options and good ones. So we'll see how the week of practice plays out, and we'll make a decision at the end of the week.
Now, there was more good news in Jacob Brammer, Zach Fry, even Peter Godber, all back with helmets out on the field. How good is that to see?
Yeah, that position for sure. It's been rough, on the injury front at that position, but again, it's that time of year where these guys are starting to come around, and similar to the running back situation. We're going to have options here, and we'll always pick and choose what we feel is best for the team. But to have everybody out there and getting back into the groove here, it's really nice to see.
When you put this season into perspective, you look back, you get your first win, you get your first home win, then you now get a playoff berth. Are you crossing off spaces on your coaching bingo card, if you will, for the season?
To be honest, I'm happy that we're finding ways to win games as opposed to the opposite. So, I think every coach has, and their staff and the teams that they work for has, ultimate goals, and we're no different. So, this is a part of, where we intended to be. And now there's still lots of stuff to play for here these last few weeks. So, narrow focus.
Coach, since Trevor's been back in his last 7 starts, he's number 1 or number 2 in most major quarterbacking categories in the CFL. What is he doing right?
The same thing he does every day, every year. Just unbelievable preparation, time, and understanding his opponent, understanding the game plan of what Mules puts together, spending extra time with the receiving core. He's a pro's pro, man. I seriously one of the best I've been around as far as preparation. Certainly at that spot, you have to be that. But he's one of those guys. It doesn't matter what his title is. He's going to go overboard to make sure he's prepared. So, again, reap what you sow.
Kean got to 200 career receptions in the win. What about him? What made him special, and what makes him dynamic to get those 200 receptions?
Yeah, I think fearless is the number one thing. He's not one of the guys that's going to shy away from going to get a ball, knowing he's going to take a hit. He's extremely competitive, optimistic guy by nature, and he's not afraid to do the dirty work and wait for his turn, and he capitalizes on these opportunities. So another guy, I don't think passport makes a difference for him. He's just a really good receiver and a heck of a teammate, man, heck of a person. So again, another guy really, really pleased is one of us.
Coach Kean was saying that the dance that him and Samuel and Trevor have been known to do in the end zone might be referred to as the Saskatchewan Samba. And so throwing this out to you as a very uncoordinated radio announcer, he says the hips don't lie. Do the hips lie?
Just going through the Rolodex of hips. I don't think they do lie, but I got to tell you the truth. I got to go watch, man. I don't know what I'm doing. I haven't seen this Saskatchewan Samba or where. I gotta go take a peek at that and see what that looks like. So, but yeah, I'd say hips definitely do not.
Dave's onto something. They're going to be T-shirts in the team store. Saskatchewan Samba, and then hashtag hips don't lie. I can see them already there. If you've been watching and listening for the entire show, you get it all. It all comes together now with this dance in the end zone. I'm sure Dave and Maz can take you through it tomorrow as I'll be hosting the program. Okay, hockey started in North America, NHL today. how about the St. Louis Blues battling back? An unbelievable. No, what's another cliche we can use here? The Blues 3-2 over the Kraken in game 1 of the season. Clutch performer for Nick Service and Emerald Park, your local Massey Ferguson Challenger Rogator Gleaner and Fent dealer. Call 781-1077 to Nick Service and Emerald Park. Jordan Kyrou. So we got to go with 2 goals, 2 Genos, as the kids call them, in a winning effort for the St. Louis Blues. So then we have Florida, Boston, and then the late game this evening is Connor Bedard and the Chicago Blackhawks in Utah. A lot of people are complain. People like to complain about this schedule. Why would the NHL come out with this schedule on day one? What's wrong with it? There's 3 games. Tomorrow's Canadian teams get at it. You did a little afternoon, did a little Hawaiian breakfast special, a matinee in Seattle. Nothing wrong with that. They raise the banner in Florida tonight, and they bring in Boston, Chicago, Utah later. I don't mind it, Harry. Is he frozen? Okay. Are you there? Can you hear? Okay. Try now.
Can't hear anything.
If we can hear you. Anywho. And then there's baseball. Then there's baseball tonight that I'm super intrigued of. Nor do I follow either team, or I'm just very curious because of the fireworks that could go down with the chirping that's went on between the Los Angeles Dodgers and San Diego Padres. I was actually here, Colson. I haven't bet on a Major League Baseball game in a long time. Trying to get some sort of line for what it would be this year. Here we go. Postseason. We have the Yankees and Royals. That's a great series as well. But anyways, over 7.5. Do you know anything about baseball?
Less than you.
It's over 7.5. Dodgers, Padres. I don't know. Maybe somebody out there in text land will want to help me out. 936-6262. Can you hear me, Harry? He can't hear anything. Okay. This is awesome. Let's take a quick break. Don't forget, we got Victor Findlay for all you Montreal Canadian fans still to come. We're talking about the Canadiens as they get going tomorrow against the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's the All New SportsCage on the home of the Riders, 620 CKRM. NHL season, like we talked about, opened up today. Early games. There's a mid game, then there's a late game. Lots to get to. All you Montreal Canadian hardos out there, they open up tomorrow against the Toronto Maple Leafs. So all you delusional Leaf fans, there you go out here in Western Canada. We're going out east. We teed it up earlier. Back on the Western Pizza guest hotline. Perfect night. NHL opener. Why wouldn't a guy order a pie from Western Pizza? Get that in you this evening. Victor Findlay. We talked to him a few months ago when he was calling like 30 games at the Memorial Cup. Still no idea how he does it, but he is the radio play-by-play voice of the Montreal Canadiens. Victor, thank you again on the eve of your opener to hopping on the cage again.
Oh, this is like my Christmas Eve. Tomorrow's Christmas morning. Leafs and Habs at the Bell Center. Can't beat it.
Yeah. I've never been to a game at the Bell Center, and I know a lot of hardcore Montreal Canadian fans who have made that pilgrimage at some point. And, luckily some guys have gone to playoff games and all that. That atmosphere, though, and what they talk about in Montreal, it's something you got to experience when it comes to NHL barns.
Yeah, it really is. Like, I can't honestly even sit here and give you a real great, accurate description of it, because it's like to come to a game in Montreal is an experience, and to be there in the crowd, especially for the prime opponents, whether that's Toronto, Boston, Pittsburgh is a big one because there's a lot of Sidney Crosby fans that come out for that. I remember when McKinnon and the Avalanche were in town last year, that was kind of a special buzz around that atmosphere too. It's really, I've never been a part of anything quite like it in a hockey rink anywhere else in the country. It's like this effortless presentation of history, and there's so much of it, decades and decades and decades of success here in this market with this franchise, and it's all done effortlessly. It just is. You go out the front and you see the statues of the retired numbers and the big Rocket Richard statue as well, and you walk in, like they do such a nice job of preserving the tradition and the history of hockey here in Montreal, and I think that's a big credit to the organization for what they've done to make watching a hockey game in the city so special.
Going into the season, any surprises for you? Any cuts? Any guys going down? I think it was Waugh maybe, or he didn't have the greatest of preseasons. For you watching this team day in and day out, what were the surprises for you?
You know what? Not a ton. I would say Joshua Waugh was the biggest surprise, although it wasn't a shock to me either, given the way that he had played in the preseason. I think, the exciting thing in Montreal now is that a lot of the prospects we've been talking about for a while now, whether they were in junior or NCAA or in Europe, they're starting to show up now in Montreal, and everyone's talking about them, and it's really exciting. Lane Hutson's here, okay, Owen Beck is here, now Florian Jackeye is here as well, and then in a way you almost kind of forget about Joshua Waugh, but he was the shiny new toy last year. He had an impressive training camp. He didn't make the team out of camp last season, but he tore up the American League in the first few months and played about 20 or so games with the Montreal Canadiens last year. And I think now people are kind of overlooking him a little bit because Lane Hutson's here, and Logan Mailloux made a push to try and make the team this year as well, amongst some other players. So look, I like Joshua Waugh a lot. I didn't think he had a great camp, but he's going to make an opening night roster in the future for sure for the Montreal Canadiens. There's a couple things for him to work on, and he'll get lots of opportunity to develop himself with the American League team right now. But it's kind of hard to be surprised when there's so many guys here that are still so young and don't have a lot of experience, and for the Habs, some of these guys are obviously best suited in the AHL. Yeah.
We did have some questions from listeners and diehard Habs fans, like I said. We got one shout out, Gilles Dauphiné here. He wants to know how soon before Lane Hudson is QBing the dismal power play. He's saying the teams they didn't even score a power play in the preseason or something like that.
No, that was tough. 0 for 30 in the preseason. Now, granted, they had one game of the 6 where they actually played their top unit in its entirety. So, read into that what you will. How long? Look, a lot of people have been talking about Lane Hudson here, and rightfully so, right? Because he's got like this otherworldly offensive talent, and it's going to translate from the NCAA to the NHL. But there's a lot of people, though, that are forgetting that Mike Matheson was one of the best power play quarterbacks in the entire National Hockey League last year. Montreal's power play has not been great by any stretch. I think it was 27th in the league last year. The last 3 or 4 years, collectively, not a good power play. But the one position on it that is not broken is the power play quarterback. Mike Matheson was top 10 in power play points by defensemen last year. He accounted for over 60% of all points or goals at least scored on Montreal's power play. So of all the 44 goals that the Habs scored on the power play last year, Matheson either scored or assisted on over 60% of those. The only other defenseman in the league that had a higher percentage was Quinn Hughes with the Vancouver Canucks. So Mike Matheson last year was one of the best power play quarterbacks in the National Hockey League. Montreal's issue with the power play is not in that spot. But that said, now Hudson's going to start the year on power play 2 right now. I don't think it's a crazy notion to suggest that we might see 2 defensemen on the same power play unit for Montreal. I know it's rare, but if there's a scenario where it works to have both Lane Hudson and Mike Matheson on the top power play unit for Montreal, I could see it happening.
Wow. Cole Caulfield, what's a realistic expectation for him? Does he got to get a little more greasy? Does he got to get some of those greasy goals? Maybe get to that 40 goal mark for the Habs?
Well, last year shooting percentage wasn't great, and I think it's something that's only going to increase for him over time. I think he got a little bit unlucky at times. Now, I thought Cole Caulfield in the last 2-3 weeks of the regular season last year was playing his best hockey. And when Cole Caulfield plays his best hockey, he is attacking. You know, he's not just a perimeter player. He can play down low on the power play, and obviously, you know, he's known for having a great shot, and he can weaponize that off the wing too. But he is a guy that offensively can be dynamic in a lot of areas in the offensive zone, not just out on the outside or on the flanks. So when Cole Caulfield's playing his best hockey, absolutely, he's attacking. He's driving the play. In terms of expectations, it's kind of difficult to put a specific number on it because so much of that depends on who he's playing with. And to be honest, I don't think Montreal have a whole lot of offensive depth yet. So now with Patrick Laine especially being out for the next 2 to 3 months, you know, if I'm an opposing team defense keying in on, you know, whose shot do we need to take away on Montreal? It's Cole Caulfield, you know, and there's not a whole lot of debate around that. So yeah, he's going to be a targeted guy again for a lot of opposing teams' defenses. But you know, I could absolutely see him being a 30-plus goal guy this year.
Victor Findlay from TSN 690, play-by-play guy of your Montreal Canadiens, joining us here. What about goaltending in Montreal, Victor?
Well, it's always a conversation, isn't it, about the goalies? And you know, the funny thing about it is, like, I think this is the most straightforward it's been in a long time. And I've been asked about it before, and my response is, like, the goaltending right now, we don't need to overcomplicate it, you know, any more than it already is. Jakub Dovish showed up in the preseason. He looked awesome. Everyone's talking about Jacob Fowler, right? He's in NCAA, and he's I think anointed by some already as the next greatest goaltender to play for the Habs. You know, he's cooking in NCAA, but Dovish came in last year. His second half in the American Hockey League was awesome. He looked really good in training camp this year. Okay, he's your number one starter right now in Laval. Caden Primo, second half of last year with Montreal, after being the third wheel behind Jake Allen and Sam Montembeault for the majority of the year, had some great performances in the second half after the All-Star break. You could argue, at least statistically speaking, he was Montreal's best goaltender in the second half of last year. So he's coming back. He's earned your spot as the backup. Sam Montembeault, when you look at over the last 2 years, more or less his body of work, and especially how he started last season, the first half of his season last year, he stole Montreal games. He's deserved that number one spot. Could that change throughout the year? Absolutely. But right now, going into opening night, Sam Montembeault is your number one, Caden Primo is your number two, and you've got a promising young player in Jakub Dovish as your AHL starter right now in Laval, who I'm sure if there's ever an issue with health or otherwise here right now with Montreal's top two goalies, Jakub Dovish would be the first one to get the call.
How realistic are playoffs for this team? Like, you know, for the guys out west here that are following in, because last year, what was it? Wasn't there like 16 overtime losses for the like, that's a lot of points sitting on the board. I think they were tops with the Islanders in the league, like 16 overtimes. There's a lot of points sitting there. Are the playoffs realistic, Victor?
I think there's a lot of things that need to happen for Montreal to make the playoffs. I think what's realistic is that they can be in the mix and they can make this interesting down the stretch. You know, and when you bring up the overtime losses, right, and the points, like that can go both ways too, right? Yeah. Sure, you could win more of those games, but you could also not get to overtime. And then let's say, you know, on average, most teams get about 8 to 9 loser points a year. You know, you eliminate 7 or 8, and Montreal's even further out of the race last year. So, yeah, there's going to, like, a guy like Kirby Dach is going to have a really good season. They're going to have to get more depth scoring. When Laine comes back, he's going to have to produce. The defense, like there's a lot of things I like about the defense, but they're super young. You know, you got Matheson and Savard, your veterans, and then nobody else who's older than 23 on the back end. You know, and I love Caden Gooley. I think he's going to have a big year for Montreal. Arbor Jack guy has obviously generated a lot of conversation around the league, but he hasn't even played 100 games yet. So the defense has to be mature above their years. And then, of course, goaltending as well has to be as good as it was in the first half of last season for Montreal. And on top of all that, I think there's some things here that are out of their control in terms of what goes on within the division. You know, is Buffalo finally going to take that step forward? Is Detroit finally going to take that step forward? Does Ottawa have their goaltending figured out? If the answer to all those questions are yes, then it becomes a lot harder for Montreal to take that leap, because so many other teams that are sort of at different stages of their rebuilds are kind of on that precipice of taking the next step.
Well, like you said, it's Christmas Eve for you. It's pretty exciting. Maybe let's see how it goes, and then let's catch up in like maybe that 6 week period and see where the Habs are landing here for all the Hab fans out west.
Sure, let's do it. Right
on. There is Victor Findlay, play-by-play man for the Montreal Canadiens on TSN 690. All you Hab fans, there's your fix right there. I'd like to see him make the playoffs. I'd like to see him somehow sneak in there and get it done. You're listening to the All New SportsCage on 620 CKRM and watching on sportscage.com. It's really weird to go on and figure out maybe a little sprinkle this evening. I put the under in the San Diego Padres Dodgers game. Again, full disclosure, I have no idea what's going to go on there. I just want to watch that game now. So now I'm in the game, as Sports Select used to say. And then Chicago, and then Utah Hockey Club. First ever time I'm wagering on that. The thing about Utah is they have a plethora of young talent. Like Phoenix or Arizona, they were loading up and before they jetted out of Dodge. So Utah's a good young hockey team. Everybody likes to watch Bedard from around these parts. But Florida's up 2-0 on Boston out of the gate. Yeah. Were you watching that one?
Just keeping an eye on it, yeah.
Jessica Campbell from Rocanville and the Seattle Kraken dropped their first game of the season this afternoon after being up on the St. Louis Blues. They lose 3-2. So those are the only 3 games in the league this season. If you're going to take a dark horse this year, like Katy Perry style, who would you take?
I don't know how much of a dark horse they are, but if they're healthy, I don't hate New Jersey.
Okay.
I'm curious. They have a few things that need to happen. Like, is Markstrom their guy? And like Heischer and those guys, the young guys, come back for another year. Like, they were good last year.
Hughes is.
Yeah. Like, can they repeat what they did last year and maybe get a little bit better goaltending? I think that's kind of what would get them over the hump, because their goaltending wasn't awesome last year. So
goaltending,
nobody else jumps out.
Yeah, I'm really curious to like. I can't see. I don't know. Does Vancouver run it back again as far as the surprise last year and doing what they do?
I don't think without goaltending, I don't think without Demko, I don't think they get off. Like, I love another win for Milos, but I don't think Silos is the guy.
The Los Angeles Kings are a little bit, and they total fly under the radar, especially up here. Like, who stays up till 1 a.m. to watch Kings games? Not a lot of people. And then again, just really curious on the perennial powers with like, okay, how's Dallas going to look? What's Dallas? And then that trade deadline stuff, what kind of kinky deals did the Golden Knights do? Which they're always in there as well. Yeah, there's so much around the NHL season. That'll be cool. Don't forget, SJHL hockey this evening. Weyburn is in Melville. Larange is in Nipawin. Notre Dame's in the Battlefords. WHL, if you're around that Brandon area, go watch Landon DuPont and the Everett Silvertips take on the Wheat Kings. That game's starting here momentarily. They're in town tomorrow if you're in Regina to play the Regina Pats at the Orange Top, so you can watch the exceptional player. Amazing stuff. Harry, always fun. A lot of fun today.
Always
now that we know we got the internet buttoned up in your neck of the woods. We got it figured. We'll do it again. Maybe next week. Thanks, brother.
Sounds good. Have a good
Everybody
night.
out there in Sports Cage land, you have Dave Thomas and Chris Mazurek tomorrow on the cage. I'll be back Thursday. Curtis Colson, good job. We'll talk to you again in a couple days.